Hello, plant lovers. I'm Robert here live with my friends Sandy Ford and Corey Pine Shane. An installation of edible and medicinal plants. Corey Pine Shane is the founder of the Blue Ridge School of Herbal Medicine, and they're both here in Asheville area. They are here to express their knowledge about winter herbs. We encourage our audience to take notes. We will be having some plant information near the end of the program. Corey Pine, which of the herbs are we going to start with? Because there's a list of them.
There are a lot of good herbs for winter wellness. I thought we'd start off with a couple that are specifically preventative. We're going to start off talking about reishi, then talk about astragalus. Reishi is botanical name is Ganoderma lucidum. There's also a reishi that grows locally, or a related plant, related mushroom that grows locally, known as Ganoderma tsuge, which is actually what this picture is of here, the Ganoderma tsuge. But works just about as well as the Chinese reishi. Reishi is actually a Japanese name. You can also see it sometimes under the Chinese name Lingzhi, which translates as mushroom of spiritual potency, if I'm not mistaken.
Now that's a mouthful.
I know. That's like a
So,
the mushroom of spiritual potency.
yeah.
Ooh, trippy. So that's what happens when you take medicinal mushrooms. Things look like this. So,
The reishi found mostly on one specific tree.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not true?
The local reishi is, as Corey Pine said before, it's known as Ganoderma tsugai, and tsugai meaning hemlock.
Hemlock.
Yes.
There you go.
So that's where we usually find it. Usually in downed hemlocks, not. Oh, I mean, you can find them on live hemlocks too, but certainly if there's areas where there's, mostly hemlock groves, and downed hemlocks is a great place to look for reishi. And it's a perennial mushroom, and springtime is actually one of the best times to harvest it, because as you can see behind us there, that sort of glossy finish, that actually is, once reishi gets older and dries, it actually becomes extremely, almost kind of rock hard, and it's hard to cut up and process. So finding them in the spring during their sort of young growth and their more tender period, and harvesting them, processing them is the most ideal time.
They are very hard, folks, and cutting them up and grinding them up is a challenge. Let's put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and this is something that we could wildcraft all of our mushrooms, because it's, as we keep saying on this program, the flowering fungi is just like a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
It will allow more to grow back in that spot or in another part of the log. So we encourage you, if you find one, to bring it back. And what is probably the best way to deal with that? In alcohol, and make a tincture. Are there other ways that you guys like to use it?
Yeah, I'd be curious to what Corey Pine thinks about that. I used to tincture it years ago, and I actually don't anymore. I tend to stick more to the traditional use of a long decoction, so making a tea, but simmering the mushroom for a good 45 minutes to an hour. I think it's a bit of a challenging mushroom. It has a really strong flavor, and personally the flavor actually is off-putting to me, so and even the smell actually of the cooking is off-putting. So I've actually experimented with it. I've powdered it. I've made it into little herbal, what I call that ends up looking like cat food, and sort of eaten it in a dried form that way. I've made it into a syrup to make it more palatable, with combining some of the other medicinal herbs we'll talk about tonight as a
Right.
sort of an immune tonic. Yeah, so koi pine, yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that.
How do you like
use it.
to
I know.
process it?
You have some interesting ways of doing it too, Sandy. I'm really curious because not everything comes out in the alcohol tincture. You can do a tincture. You don't get the immune-stimulating polysaccharides from the tincture, but reishi also has an adaptogenic effect. So it's very nourishing, calming for the mind, calming for the heart. Adaptogens are this group of herbs that help us basically deal with life more calmly. And so for that kind of Zen meditation experience of reishi, it does work really well as a tincture. But since we're here talking about the immune-stimulating properties, that would actually work better as a decoction. Or what I did actually just yesterday, ironically enough, with actually this reishi that's right here, is I chopped it up when it was fresh, dried it, and then made a long decoction in a crock pot. Let it simmer in the crock pot for a few hours. Took it out, measured it, then I simmered it down to half, and then I simmered it down a little bit more, simmered off some of the water, took the lid off at that point, and then I added enough alcohol so that the final alcohol content of it was 25%. So then you get the then you get the water-soluble stuff and you get the alcohol-soluble stuff all together. So for clarity's sake, I added the alcohol back in to the decoction with the herb, with the mushroom still in there. So then I'm going to let it sit for another couple of weeks and then strain it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a great formula. I hope everybody's taking notes home as they go out and try and find some reishi on a hemlock this spring and go ahead and make some medicine out of it. It is one of the better ones out there in our environment.
On to the next yet?
Yeah. Let's go on to...
I think we were going to
elder.
talk,
Go ahead,
you
go
can
ahead,
put-
just keep going.
yeah, we were
Yeah.
going to talk about astragalus. I don't know if we have a picture about
Oh, that's
that.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right there.
yeah.
I'll
Um,
hold it up.
One thing I do want to, just another thing about reishi, it's interesting to think about, the fact that it grows on hemlock, and we have a major problem with hemlocks right now in this part of the country. A lot of our hemlocks are dying from woolly adelgid, and
Right.
the only positive thing I can possibly think of coming out of that is that we may have a plethora of reishi growing in this region because of the trees dying and the mushrooms starting to take over.
Yes, that would be about the only...
About the only positive thing
That
that
we're
would
gonna
come
get
out of
that.
yeah.
Okay, so let's
How do we wanna
right up
do
in
this?
this space right
Yeah.
here.
What do we do?
Want to take one out.
Okay.
And,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
right
on it.
in this area
Yeah.
here.
So next part we wanted to talk about was is astragalus, and this is a picture.
root?
Yeah, this is a typical, although I would say sort of small slices of root. So these are sort of what would you call it? Lateral slices of a root. So if you imagine a larger root, and how they're traditionally processed is they're cut in these slices, and so you'll often find them this way. Often a lot larger too. I mean, sometimes they call them the tongue depressor herb because you can get them in these really older roots and these sort of long. They look like tongue depressors. You can find them shredded also, although if you've ever had some of the shredded astragalus, you can tell by the texture that it's actually challenging to shred the plant. So for the most part, I actually like, using in
Lift
these.
them up a little bit more.
Sure.
Right, a little bit over.
Oh, there we go.
Freeze your hand. and
Okay.
Talk about it.
Okay. I can put my hand down
Put it
now.
back, yeah.
Okay. Koi Pine, you want to?
Yeah, astragalus is used in Chinese medicine for a lot more than what we use it for in the West. But the main way that astragalus is used in the West is as a deep immune tonic. Now, for clarity's sake, both this herb astragalus and reishi that we're talking about, these aren't things you take when you feel sick. They're things you take throughout the winter to help you from getting sick. The preventative medicine, not so much treatment. And astragalus and reishi are both really deep immune tonics. These are the kind of herbs you can use even for someone who has cancer, possibly AIDS. any kind of like deep immune deficiency as well. And some of astragalus specifically right now, what it does, it helps build up what's called in Chinese medicine the Wei Qi, which is the defensive qi. It kind of runs around the outside of the body, and it's protective. It helps protect our body from invasion by outside organisms, bacteria, virus.
The guy
Other
behind you
pathogens.
in the movie theater sneezing on you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Astragalus is great
Go
for
home
that.
and dose up on your
And you
astragalus.
kind of like do the whole kung fu movement. Throw the tongue depressor behind you.
One of the things I love about astragalus is that I think it tastes really nice. It has this kind of sweet, almost sort of nutty taste to it, so it works really well, I think, in a tea, combines well with other herbs in a tea, and I cook with it a lot. So a lot of these sort of, woodier plants or harder plant materials, oftentimes you want to cook them or simmer them for a longer period of time. In herbal medicine, we have what's called a decoction, which is a tea that you simmer for 20 minutes or so. But if you think of foods that you cook that way also, such as a pot of beans, or if you're making any type of broth, like I make chicken soup a lot, and so I'll throw some pieces of astragalus in there. Brown rice, you're going to cook for 40 minutes or 45 minutes. You could throw some pieces of astragalus in there. So it's a way of sort of infusing your food with the immune strengthening and building properties.
Exactly. And astragalus has been used as a formula, of course, with Asian ginseng for 4,000 years, the combo of astragalus and Asian ginseng. So it has been tested in time as a wonderful immune helper. Okay, we want to move on.
And astragalus actually tastes good in soup, whereas reishi, as Sandy was saying, is a little bit bitter. Although Christopher Hobbs does say that there's one type of reishi that can be used in soup. I think it's called a black reishi, but I haven't found a reishi that really tastes. I mean, I think it would kind of ruin the soup. The reishis that I've tasted, better as a separate tea. But the astragalus, great in soup. Then just take them out. You don't actually eat the astragalus. Basically, you make tea into the soup. Just for clarity's sake.
Sure, that's important, so that we don't have people munching on their astragalus pieces in their soup.
Right. We mentioned a long time.
Yeah, and so that is interesting. We are very, very aware of how many plants are in our diet, and this is a great way to infuse the medicinal and the tonic plants back into our diet. The astragalus is one of the Class A Chinese herbs, and it is one of the ones that we all know can be a great tonic.